Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Art of MMA. I'm Mike Ginn. That's the mechanic, Brandon Contino. Today we got quite a bit to talk about. We're going to break down Bellator 268, all the Grand Prix action. Of course, Vadim Nemkov defending his title. We're going to talk about UFC Vegas 40, had the ladies in the main event. We'll talk about the whole Aspen Ladd situation. Of course, Norma Dumont with the victory. We're going to get into the news, much to the Brandon's chagrin. We're going to talk about Conor McGregor in that situation. The rant this week is going to be breaking down my opinion. I don't know if Brandon cares to even chime in on this, but I do want to get his thoughts a little bit on it. We're going to go into the whole Schaub Helwani situation that's been brewing for a long time. We're finally going to weigh in on that one. And then we're going to go ahead and make our picks. UFC Vegas 41, this in action this weekend. Both cards this weekend are going to be early in the morning, so pay attention on Saturday. UFC Vegas 41 will be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon with Costa and Vettori. And then Bellator is going even earlier. We'll talk about that. Felder is back in action against Tim Johnson this weekend. So we're going to get into all that. Of course, this show is brought to you on the Fighters First Network, fightersfirst.shop. Check out the merch, support the show, support the channel, and show some love. We got some great, dope combat sports streetwear on there, some great collections. And if you're paying attention today, pay attention this Friday. We're going to drop the next episode of Unfiltered with Eugene Aubrey. If you don't know his story, pay attention to that episode. It's just a crazy situation. I know a lot of people are talking about Solomon Renfro, especially after what happened last night. His story does go back to Solomon Renfro. That was his last fight in Cage Fury Fighting Championship. About a year later, he was shot in Philadelphia and paralyzed. He's fighting back. He's been fighting to try to be able to walk again, let alone to be able to fight again, as crazy as that sounds. So listen in on his story. We'll be dropping on Friday, which is actually the 1-year anniversary of when he was shot. And then we're also going to be doing something really cool. So pay attention to fightersfirst.shop this week. We're going to drop a T-shirt for Eugene Aubrey. That's going to take all 100% of the profits are going to go straight to the fund to help him with his stem cell therapy, his trips, travel, and everything to Colombia to get treatment, and all the stuff that costs obviously lots and lots of money. So we're going to do our part, try to help out Eugene Aubrey and his cause. So pay attention to all that. It will obviously be on all the social media and everything that we do. Brandon, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Ready to talk some fights.
All right, man. Let's jump right into it. Bellator 268 was in action last weekend. Of course, the Bellator light heavyweight Grand Prix. The champion defending his belt, Vadim Nemkov, against Julius Anglickas. And then, of course, Corey Anderson and Ryan Bader in the co-main event for the other half of the Grand Prix. We'll start with the main event. Brandon, tell everybody at home what happened.
What happened was Nemkov said he was the champion. It was total domination. I mean, besides that little hiccup of him getting punched and dropping,
yeah, he got rocked in the first.
Yeah. But the thing was like, yeah, he did get dropped, but the thing was though he bounced right back up. You know, it wasn't like he was on his butt for a long time. You know, got back up, threw some punches, he got his takedown. But yeah, I mean, it was just complete domination. You know, until that fourth round where you know he got the finish.
Yeah, he finally got the Kimura locked in the fourth round. I think at this point, you know, we always say the common phrase when it comes to a Bellator champion, put some respect on his name, right? AJ McKee, Pitbull before him. Now Vadim Nemkov. Nemkov is going through former UFC fighters. He's going through KSW fighters. He's just going through anybody they put in his path. And he's only getting better. He did get rocked in the first round, but anybody can get caught with a punch in a fight, whether it's boxing, MMA, it doesn't matter. It's how you bounce back. And he didn't look like he was seriously hurt. He got right back up. And then once he realized the takedown was there, he just did the easy work for the rest of the fight until it was time to put it to sleep in the fourth round. Vadim Nemkov gets the W. As far as what's next, well, that takes us to our co-main event. Of course, Corey Anderson and Ryan Bader, two former UFC guys, battling it out, had a lot of shit talking going into this fight. Both Brandon and I called it. We said, this is Corey Anderson's show at this point. And Ryan Bader is talented. He has a chance. But Corey Anderson made sure there was no chance. Tell people at home what happened in that one.
Yeah, man, it was just both guys. You know, usually what happens, right, when you have two wrestlers, you know, they cancel the wrestling out and it just becomes a striking match. And really that's what happened was Corey Anderson, he went to go throw a 2-3 combination, hit him with the 2, didn't need the 3 because on that 2, that's when Bader went down. Corey Anderson just swarmed on him, ground and pound, until the ref stopped it. And it only took him up. I think it was 51 seconds.
Yeah, it wasn't very long. And I kind of called that last week. I was like, I feel like this is going to be a straight up knockout. Like, I just think Corey Anderson's trending this way. Ryan Bader's been doing enough, but he beat a very aging Lyoto Machida in his last fight. He didn't look great when Nemkov knocked him out the fight before that. You have the whole eye poke, whatever, with Czech Congo before that. You have to go all the way back to the Fedor fight in 2019, talking about another aging fighter that he knocked out. So I don't think Ryan Bader's looked fantastic the last couple years. He's looked good enough. But I think Corey Anderson's definitely gotten his act together since he had that loss to Jan Blachowicz. And he's going straight up since then. I don't know if I buy into all the hype. Obviously, what's next for both these guys is each other. And when they match up probably early 2022 for the championship and the Grand Prix title, I don't know if I buy into all the hype that Scott Coker says the winner of this tournament is going to be the best light heavyweight in the world. I think there's a lot of people on both sides of the fence that can make a claim for that. I think when you talk about Corey Anderson, it's kind of hard to say he's the best light heavyweight in the world, at least in my opinion, when his last loss was against the UFC champion right now.
But he beat Jan as well, so they're 1-1.
Yeah, but what have you done for me lately? The last time Jan knocked him out. And even Jan came out and said this week, it's like, if you're talking about the best light heavyweight in the world, maybe I punched him a little too hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just have a hard time. Like, I'm not putting one champion above the other champion, but if you look at them head to head very recently, it was like 2019. Like, the last time they fought each other, you saw what happened. So I guess we see what happens with Jan and Glover coming up as far as the best light heavyweight in the world. But I think the best light heavyweight in the world, unless Corey Anderson knocks him off right now, is Vadim Nemkov. And that's the guy that isn't talking a lot because it's just not really his style. But I think he should be the one being talked about the most. I think the UFC's light heavyweight division is full of aging fighters. Even up-and-coming fighters getting bounced back like Anthony Smith are in their 30s. Rakic, I believe, is right around 30. So a lot of these fighters in the UFC are all aging. Nemkov is still like in his prime, 29 years old, and has the world in front of him because he's only getting better. What do you think on the whole situation? Who would you say, as of today, who's your best light heavyweight in the world?
Man, I mean, if I'm being a homer, man, I would probably still say my boy Phil Davis, just cause, even though, I mean, man, it's up there for debate. Like the thing to me, man, that people just don't give Bellator the credit it deserves, because you think about the people who are fighting for the UFC title. You got Glover Teixeira and you got Blachowicz fighting. Corey Anderson has a win on both those guys. Yes, Jan did knock him out the last time. Like I said, that's what I'm saying. They're 1-1. But Glover, he took out. And when he fought Jan, he ragdolled Jan for 15 minutes. And basically, like after that fight, Jan was like, "Oh man, I need to go. Think about my career and everything like that." And which, of course, that
was like 6 years ago.
Yeah. It propelled Jan, to be a better fighter. So. But like I said, that's 1-1, and like I said, Nemkov up and coming. He only has one loss on his record. So I mean, just the way how things are going, man, the way how people are looking. Like I said, Jan is up there. I think Corey Anderson, Nemkov are up there. Like I said, I'm still not resting on my boy Phil Davis, because to me, man, besides Nemkov, who's beating Phil Davis right now? So
yeah, but he beat Phil Davis twice.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying he beat him twice. Yeah, he's in there, but I'm just thinking about who has the better light heavyweights. I might lean towards Bellator, but who is the best light heavyweight right now? I say we're gonna find out between the Anderson and the Nemkov fight.
Yeah, I mean, I still have a hard time putting Corey in that conversation, but I guess if he beats Nemkov, he has to be. Nemkov has 2 losses, by the way. He lost back-to-back to Prochazka in what was it, Carl Anderson or something like that? I have to pull it up. Carl Brexon. That's 5-6 years ago. So that's how long it's been. Since then, he's been on a tear, getting stoppages in every single fight. I mean, you're talking a guy who has 14 wins and only 2 of those are by decision. He goes out, he gets his KOs, couple submissions here and there. Nemkov's putting on a show. He's 29 years old. I think right now, especially with John Jones weighing 250 or whatever the hell he weighs now. I think the best light heavyweight in the world right now is Vadim Nemkov. So there's a conversation to be said about that. As far as the rest of that card, I got my pick right. I did say Brett Primus was going to take care of Benson Henderson. It was a good little fight. It went back and forth a little bit. I think Primus is just, more well-rounded at this point. Benson's on the downside of his career, but he put up a fight. It wasn't like a one-sided beat down. As far as Brandon was mentioning it last week, former contender Henry Corrales looked like his 2018 version of himself. He looked great against, I'm going to butcher this name, but Parubchenko. And then speaking of Carl Brexton, he was on his card as well. He got his win, against unanimous decision. This card was full of names, hard to pronounce, so excuse me for people at home. I'm trying not to butcher all these things. Makhmed Berkhamov got the win against Jaleel Willis in a guillotine in the first round. I was surprised to see Jaleel go out that fast. And I thought this would be a lot more competitive fight. But, you get caught sometimes. Nick Brown got the heel hook win against Bobby Lee. That was beautiful. Javier Torres got the win against Greg Millard, split decision victory. Inaba got the win over Randy Field via arm triangle choke. You want to talk real quick about your fight, Lance Gibson Jr. over Pena? Got that knockout?
Yeah, man. I want to say the first round it didn't start out so well for him. Pena was on top, was holding them down, controlling them. But hey, he did survive. Then came the second round, he put them hands on him, and it was ref stoppage. I think Pena maybe didn't like it, but the thing was, man, he wasn't doing anything. Like he was just getting hit.
Nobody really likes to get hit, Brandon. That's actually not true. There are some people that really genuinely like to get hit. But I think the point of this game is to get hit and not get hit. But I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
Jalen Bates got the win over Montini de Lima, armbar in the first round. Sullivan Cauley got the TKO over Dion Clash. And then Maria Henderson with the rear naked choke over Colette Santiago in the first round. Were there any other fights on that card that really kind of stood out to you?
I really was enjoying the prelims, man. Like say, like the first, I think it was the first 4 fights on the prelims, man, which is all finishes. All
the fights until the main card were finishes.
Yeah, saying that's how you wanted to be,
I think other than all the way up until the Brexton card, you had the split decision with Javier Torres versus Greg Millard. Other than that, it was all finishes.
Yeah,
and then it was all decisions until you got. It was all decisions until you got to the main event or the co-main event. What did you think of that Javier Torres, Greg Millard decision?
Man, I'm trying to think. Because I'm like, I know I was watching the prelims, but also I was watching UFC at the same time. So I'm trying to think if that was the fight where I was looking at and I was watching UFC.
He's telling you to watch Bellator, but he was watching the competition too.
Hey, man, I'm watching both. because I know we're going to be talking about it.
Personally, I think it was a good decision, but I just kind of want to get your take because anytime you have a split decision like that, can either go either way. I thought Torres.
I think.
but
I think I want to say I think I was cool with it. Yeah, because I want to say I think everything that happened, I was fine. I was fine with all the results.
I think Millard had a highlight or two, but I wouldn't have given him a decision. One judge obviously did, but MMA judging, what can you do? Mm-hmm. But I always like to get people's opinion when you come to, those kind of crazy decisions. Real quick before we get out of here on Bellator and move on to the UFC. What was your highlight of the night for this card?
Honestly, man, to me, it has to be Corey Anderson. People want to get on him, saying he went into a hostile environment. They were booing him hard when he came out. But man, he loves to be the bad guy, loves to be the villain. He knocked Ryan Bader out and then he just shushed the crowd, just like he did with Johnny Walker.
Yeah, Phoenix, Arizona, that's Ryan's backyard. I think I'm gonna start doing that. I'm gonna start getting your highlight of the night before for each card from now on. I think that's a new thing on Art of MMA.
All right, cool with me.
People, you witnessed it here first. All right, that's Bellator 268. We'll look forward to the continuation of the Grand Prix, probably early 2022 when we catch them. Corey Anderson versus Nemkov for the title and for the Grand Prix championship. I'm sure we're probably going to be leaning different ways because he's probably on Corey Anderson, and I'm probably on Nemkov. But we'll see when it comes fight time. Things can change as they always do. Let's go ahead and move over to the UFC. UFC Vegas 40. who would have thought when all of these, like, the pandemic hit and all these fight cards started taking place at the Apex, that we would not only get to UFC 40, but Vegas 40, but we'd get to Vegas 41 coming up this weekend. Like, there's no end in sight for these Apex cards. It's kind of crazy. We're like, oh, UFC Vegas. And then, okay, UFC Vegas 2. Now we're UFC Vegas 40. I don't know. Just a little side note, people. I get distracted sometimes. But Aspen Ladd versus Norma Dumont. Both of us picked Dumont. Kind of went to script about what we kind of said was going to happen. There's levels to this, but also Norma Dumont, we're going to talk about what happened with Aspen Ladd and her coaching, and I'm going to get your thoughts on all that stuff because I've heard both sides of the argument. But I'm going to say this. Stop talking about the person who lost and start talking about why the person who won. Because Norma Dumont looked great. She kind of faded late. She got a little gas in the last little bit and gave, Ladd a round or so. And you can see it between the rounds that Norma was kind of getting tired in the 4th and 5th round. But even then, she was still defending the takedowns. She was still throwing elbows, still doing what she needed to do in the clinch. Norma Dumont looked fantastic in this fight. I would love to see her and Holly Holm match up like they were supposed to originally. I know there was talk of Dumont calling for maybe her and Holm to have an interim title or whatever while they're waiting for Amanda to work out her fight with Pena and then maybe defend the 145-pound belt again. I would love to see it. I think Norma Dumont looked fantastic in this fight. I think she controlled the action from the get-go. Brandon, what do you think of this fight before we talk about the whole corner thing?
Yeah, no, man, it was all Norma Dumont the whole fight. I mean, there was nothing to it. I think if you look at the stats, I think Aspen Ladd in the first round landed like 3 punches. Then I think in the second round she maybe landed 5 punches, and then like in the third she did 12, and then after that she went like I think she like went backwards, to like back to like 4, and however she did. But basically, like there was no output from Ladd. Like it was all Norma Dumont. She ran it, and she won it just with her jab. That's all she was using, really, was just her jab. That's all she needed. She kept Aspen Ladd at bay. She had the reach, popped her jab out, did combinations, good movement, moved around. She didn't stand really in front of Ladd, so that way Ladd can try to use her wrestling to take her down and try to work her ground and pound, because that's really what Aspen Ladd, that is what she likes to do. But Norma Dumont, she wasn't having it.
Now the elephant in the room. So I've heard a lot of people say different things, and I said something online as well after this fight about the way Aspen Ladd's corner was kind of coming after her, saying, what are you doing? You're not trying. You're not doing anything. You have to go. And it wasn't just a matter of the words. It was kind of the way he was saying it. I don't have a problem per se with what he was saying, because even Daniel Cormier came out, and we'll talk about it in the rant later with Brendan Schaub and stuff like that. But I heard a little bit more of Brendan Schaub below the belt talking about it as well. A fighter knows how to get the most, or coach knows how to get the most out of their fighter. They've been behind the scenes with a fighter for a certain amount of time. They know what they respond to, and they know what they don't respond to. What is your take on it as a fighter? What is your take on the way that her corner was kind of talking to her between rounds? And what was your take on this whole situation?
To me, my take is I have no take. Like I didn't find anything wrong with it. I thought, to me, he was speaking facts. He wasn't sugarcoating anything. He was keeping it real with her, telling her what was going on. And to me, I think some people are just being, I guess what I want to say is sensitive, man. Like to me, there was nothing to it. Saying you saw DC came out, said he had no problem with it. Even Laura Sanko came out and said like, yeah, there was nothing wrong with it. Like, I know, I think Misha Tate had a problem with it. She was kind of saying it was abusive or anything like that, but I didn't see it. I wasn't feeling it. So
for one, Misha seems to have an opinion on everything lately, but for two, I don't have a problem with the way he was talking to her, because quite honestly, he should know her better than we know her at home, right? Mm-hmm. I do agree people are being too sensitive. I think she needs another fight camp, another team, for multiple other reasons. For one, this is the same coaching staff and same team that didn't have her ready to fight a couple weeks ago. They didn't have her on weight. They didn't have her ready to fight after having almost 2 years out of the cage. She was not ready to go after a fight got pushed back a few weeks. And then a second chance, they still weren't ready to go, even though it wasn't her fault the first time. The first time her opponent got hurt. This time, she wasn't in weight. And then a couple weeks later, they're like, all right, we're going to go 145 pounds. Honestly, I feel like Aspen Ladd might have came out flat the first few rounds just because she's done so many weight cuts that she just wasn't balanced and ready to go healthy and nutritiously. Because, a diet it can be everything for a fighter. If you have a bad diet and a bad nutritional system, you're not going to perform at your best. I think what she did the last 4th and 5th round was pure willpower because her coach was like basically badgering her to do it. But I don't have a problem with what he said. I don't have a problem with how he coached her. What I have a problem with is the team. You're talking about a team that doesn't have another UFC fighter on their roster. I was actually just pulling it up a minute ago. Her team, MMA Gold, they fight out of Folsom, California. I don't remember the coach's name offhand. I apologize. But I think Dre Mitchell is the only other fighter that even really has, maybe Luis Gonzalez, that has any kind of major MMA experience as far as like fighting on a Bellator or UFC type card. Aspen Ladd is by far their biggest star. For one, you don't get to the top of the game by fighting other people who aren't also on the top of the game. It's unfortunate. Sometimes you have to go from one camp to another, or at least bring in people of certain caliber to train with you so you can elevate your own game. Iron sharpens iron. Look at Brandon's team over at Tiger Schulman's. You have killers all around that room. Did it start out like that? No. But you know what? A lot of people are now going there. I talked to Solomon Renfro a few weeks ago. One of the things he noticed from his gym in Western New York, in Buffalo, compared to Tiger Schulman's, is now he's fighting against people that are on the same level or above him, and now he's getting better. I don't think Aspen Ladd has that. I don't think Aspen Ladd's team has the experience as far as weight cutting and getting them ready for fights. So if anything, I think that should be the criticism here. She wasn't ready 2 weeks ago. She wasn't really ready tonight or last Saturday night. And it showed the first few rounds when Norma Dumont dominated it. So that's the question. Can Aspen Ladd bounce back? Sure. But she needs a real fight camp and a real situation. That's my 2 cents on it. Real quick, Brandon, before we move on to the next fight, what do you think is next for Norma Dumont? Do you think it's holding out for Holly Holm, or what do you think is next for her?
I don't think it's Holly Holm because Holly Holm really doesn't want to fight at 145. She wants to fight at 135, but the only thing is that the girls at 135 don't want to fight Holly. So she just took this fight to stay busy. But I think could happen, man. Could be something that I know you wish would happen, and that's your good buddy Kayla Harrison coming into the U.S. hurt Norma Dumont, either number 1 contender or maybe they could be
gives up the belt.
champion or anything like that. Yeah,
I think Amanda could give up the belt if she saw Kayla come in and not wanting to defend 2 belts because they're friends. I could see Amanda giving up the belt. Unfortunately, there's not even rankings for the 145-pound division. After Megan Anderson fought Nunez, we thought the division was dead. Felicia Spencer and Dumont popped up to kind of keep it alive. She's already beat Felicia Spencer, though it was a split decision, so maybe they can run it back. We'll see. I guess it really depends on what Holly Holm wants to do. As far as elsewhere on that card, over in the co-main event, Andrei Arlovsky versus Carlos Felipe. Tell people at home what happened in that fight.
Hey, man, Andrei Arlovsky has become a smarter fighter. Like saying back in the day when he first started, he was a gunslinger going out there trying to bang with people. But now, basically what he does is, man, he slows down the fight. That's what he does. He slows down the fight because usually with these younger heavyweights, again, with heavyweights, usually they're all gunslingers. They want to try to go in, knock you out. But the things are, Arlovsky is not going into these gunfights. Like, he's not trying to have these brawls. He's slowing down the pace. And he's basically making these guys use skills that maybe they don't have or that they forgot about and they forgot how to use. And basically Arlovsky just does enough in the round to get the judge's favor. And that's really what, and that's again is really what happened in this fight as well. You know what I'm saying? He slowed down the pace. You know, there were times where like they would come in, engage, and get a couple of swings in, but then Arlovsky would just pull out, circle around, keep his distance, and then he would just go back to his game plan.
I kind of worry about Arlovsky at this point in his career because he looked clearly gassed in the third round. Like he could barely. At one point, he wasn't even knocked down. He kind of just fell down when he threw a leg kick and fell off balance. His gas tank was clearly not there, but you also have a heavy guy leaning on you for 3 rounds. I can understand that as well. He looks in great shape, but he is a 40-something-year-old fighter. So, it is what it is. Carlos Felipe had his moments in his fight, especially later when Andre got gassed. But we talked about it last week. Andre is just – he's not getting into these firefights like he used to. He's picking his shots. He's taking his time. And he's won a few fights now because he's not getting crazy knocked out or knocking out or getting knocked out. And it's not being the fight of the night anymore. Instead, he's just getting wins now. And he might be stretching his career longer and longer as long as he keeps getting these wins. So we'll see. As far as what's next for him, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, he's kind of been a gatekeeper against some of these up-and-coming fighters lately in the heavyweight division. But I don't see him against a top 15 guy unless it's like a Sergey Pavlovich or Spivak who's dropping down a little bit. I mean, I think he's already fought Walt Harris, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know. Who would you see next for Arlovsky?
I mean, to be honest with you, man, I feel like the heavyweight division is just so much up in the air with everything going on with the championship and all that stuff. So, I mean, I really know. I mean, I would think that he would deserve somebody from the top 15. Maybe somebody in the top 10. Like 10, 9, 8, maybe not past 7, but.
I mean, they could run it back with Walt Harris. I forgot the last time they fought, it was overturned by the Athletic Commission for a reason I don't recall. But
yeah,
so it's a no contest the last time he fought Walt Harris. So maybe they could run that one back. But he seems to be the gatekeeper for some of these up and coming heavyweights. So we'll see. Arlovsky's always a show to be put on, but I would be happy if he starts winding it down a little bit and stops, fighting a little bit. But it's his call, always his call. So speaking of timeless wonders, Jim Miller, he found that left hand worked in the first round. And once he found it, he threw it again and again and again. Gonzalez made it to the second round, but not much longer. 14 seconds into the second round, it was lights out. So congrats to Jim Miller. He keeps on trucking. Brandon, you want to talk about your pick real quick? Fiorot versus Silva?
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, it was just to me, I felt like Fiorot just really controlled that whole fight. Again, somebody just talking about using the jab. That's what I felt like she really did as well. That whole fight really was just, she was just moving, staking and moving. I mean, I know her opponent was kind of trying to tell her oh, hey, your punches aren't doing anything to me, but she was just scoring. So,
and yes, people at home, I know he didn't pick it officially last week, but he picked it a few weeks ago. So that's why I'm telling him about it.
But no, I mean, I thought it was a good performance. I think it allowed her to get some rounds in, because usually I think really with Fiorot, I think her last 2 fights she was getting finishes. So I think this fight, allows her to kind of test her cardio, test her conditioning, see if she can go the whole 15 minutes, and she did that.
A good experience builder type situation. Also on the card, Landwehr got that anaconda choke late on Klein. I don't know what to make of Ludwig Klein. Every time I think he's going to be a good fighter, he falls apart. He had chances in his fight, and he just got caught late. Bruno Silva with the TKO over Andrew Sanchez in the third round. Danny Roberts got the split decision over Ameev. That was another close fight. I'm not questioning that decision, but it was pretty close. Carolina over Godinez, who stepped in on a week's notice, got the decision. Becquerel got the TKO over Brandon Davis, which is one of the highlights of the night. And then Ariane Kamalasi got the win over Nunez via rear naked choke in the third round. Brandon, what was your highlight on the fight?
Come on, man. You know what it is. Jersey born and bred, baby. Jim Miller, man, with that knockout. Dude straight sat him down.
Yeah, I said on Twitter, I was like, you can talk about Arlovsky, you can talk about the Dumont Ladd situation. Jim Miller stole the show. He stole the show. And you always say that Jim Miller's done. There's no more left. And then he does some shit like this. So props to Jim Miller. Props to Jersey. Congrats to the whole Miller Brothers team and everybody. Anything else you want to add on this card before we move on?
Nah, man. Oh, there's one thing, man. I just want to let everybody know. I mean, I'm sure you're going to say it later, but I went 5-0 on my picks, baby. That's it.
Yeah, because so did I.
Yeah, but I'm still lead dog about it.
I was going to talk about it before the picks. You said you couldn't wait. It's all right, cool. I was 5-0 too, Brandon.
Hey, but I'm lead dog, baby. That's all I know.
I was even going to congratulate you on being the first to go over 100 wins. But you know what? I'll see if I still think about that later. I might just forget. Real quick before we move on, in the mentions, I just want to talk about Dana White's Contender Series from last night real quick. Solomon Renfro got robbed. I know Brandon's going to be on that team anyway because he's Team Tiger Schulman. Let me, as the unbiased person, say he got robbed. He got robbed so dramatically that if you pull up the stats from that night, even the second round where you could kind of be like, it was a close round. He had more strikes landed in every single round, dramatically in the first and third. For any judge to get their head out of their asses and see. And then on top of it, to hear Johnny talk after the fight like, oh, I'm this great guy. I can take all this punishment and still win fights. Johnny, got your ass kicked. You got your ass kicked. Everybody at home saw it. And the fact that Dana gave you a contract for that shit is some garbage. That's my 2 cents. Brandon, you want to chime in on this, or you just want to let me take the fall for this one?
Nah, man. I mean, if anything, I mean, if they want to be like that, I would at least thought it was a draw because I at least thought the first round was a 10-8 round for Solomon. He rocked him.
That was another thing. I thought it was a 10-8 round too.
Yeah, had him down. He was running. He was covering up. So I at least thought the first round was definitely a 10-8. I mean, hey, you want to give Johnny Parsons a second and third round, fine, then boom, that's a draw. But he shouldn't, I like I said, I thought Solomon won it, hands down, because even Johnny Parsons' coach told him after the second round was like, yo, you need to finish. Hence why when the third round started, Johnny Parsons tried to do that flying scissor knee, because he knew he needed to finish. But hey, like you say, I'm not a judge. I might be biased, but hey, I thought Solomon won it. But hey, man, that won't stop him. That won't define him. Like my other teammate said, Shane Bergo said, like, yo, Solomon will be in the UFC in the year 2022. So
not only will he be in the UFC, he's going to be a champion one day. I have a lot of faith in that guy and his performance and ability. Said it online, said it here on the show. Solomon Renfro is the truth. You saw it in that first round. He came out and smoked Johnny Parsons. Johnny barely survived. I don't see any judge giving Johnny 2 rounds, let alone maybe even 1. So I think Johnny had his moments in the second round, but to sit there and give him 2 rounds out of 3 when the numbers were so dramatically one way versus the other. And he had Solomon hit with that one liver kick at one point where Solomon kind of like stone-faced it, like to pretend like he wasn't hurt. And he kind of hesitated for probably like 30 seconds before he really got his like wind back. Other than that, I didn't see a moment that Parsons had anything on Renfro. Also on that card, real quick, Pierre Rodriguez got the win. Chao Barallo got just an awesome TKO over Jesse Murray. Petrosian, the younger brother of your kickboxing dude, George's, right?
Georgia Petrosian.
Yeah, he got the KO, so he's going to the UFC as well. And Falcao got the TKO over Barnes. So it was a pretty exciting Dana White Contender Series. I was struggling to watch because I had such a long day recording and everything else going on that day. But I think it was highway robbery in the main event, and that's going to be the thought that's left with me on that. Any other thoughts on that for you, Brandon?
Nah.
All right. Let's go ahead and switch gears, switch up to This Week in MMA, talk about some news. This is the part Brandon's going to tune out. Italian DJ accuses Conor McGregor of punching him in the face and breaking his nose. He posted like a Instagram video or something, like holding up his lip, and he's like, look what he did to me. Story goes, allegedly, they were all drinking, having fun in Italy. They go back to the DJ's house. Conor gets a little riled up and just sucker punches him. I don't know if I believe that whole story. I don't disbelieve it because it's Conor and he's done so much stupid shit over the years, from punching the old man at the bar to getting into it with MGK at the MTV Awards. I don't think anybody's putting it past Conor at this point. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. I do want to send our condolences to the family of Brian Gassaway, 49 years old, passed away. For those that know, Brian has fought pretty much all over the world. He fought in Bellator, the UFC, WEC. His last fight was about 11 years ago, but sorry, people at home, I turn that down a little bit. About 11 years ago, but longtime vet, 49 fights, fought all over the world from like 1996 all the way to 2010. So one of the early great guys of MMA to follow and keep track of. So condolences to Brian Gassaway's family. Also, Marvin Vettori is in the news talking about he had issues with Paul Felder's commentary from the last fight. Said they're going to address it in person this week at Fight Week. I would love to see some behind-the-scenes stories on Instagram or something pop up with that conversation because I don't think it's going to go the way Vettori wants it to go. And then last bit of news, Joanna champion, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She's been getting a lot of heat, especially from Marina Rodriguez after she got her win. Why is she still in the rankings? This and that. She hasn't fought in 19 months. Honestly, I didn't even realize it had been that long. But for Joe's point, she was like, you want my spot in the rankings? Take it. I don't care. Joe's currently living her best life. You see her traveling the world, enjoying herself, but she's also in the best shape of her life as well. If you remember that Wei Li fight, like they both came out of there with a lot of damage. In this case, she's healthy, she's strong, she's been training, and she says, whenever I get back in the cage, my real fans will love me, and I'll put on a show. So she doesn't care about the rankings. Only people like Marina Rodriguez, who are desperate to get up in there, care about them, according to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So any thoughts on that subject before we move on, Brandon?
No, I mean, hey, whenever Joanna wants to get back in the cage, I know a lot of people will definitely be excited to watch her.
I mean, she always puts on the show, whether you love her or hate her. So definitely.
Oh, wait. I was going to say one more thing of news, Sam, because we were talking about Bellator earlier. So there's some Bellator news that just dropped today, too. Sergio Pettis, he's going to defend his title December 3rd against
fourth. That was the fourth.
Third.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a Friday night. It's gonna be in my neck of the woods up in Connecticut at the Mohegan Sun against Yamaguchi, right? Yeah, Yamaguchi, right?
Yeah. I saw the news today too, but so many fights have been changing lately. I'm kind of hesitant to make a fight announcement nowadays.
Hey man, that's the UFC, man. Remember, Bellator, their fights do happen though.
Do they?
Yeah.
There's been some fights that dropped out of Bellator too. Let's stop. It's been happening all over. Heck, we're going to talk about it tomorrow on Crossing Borders. But Luke 17, Luke's Fight League. Of course, Alex Soto is the color commentary there. He flew down last weekend for that. We're going to talk about that card tomorrow on Crossing Borders. But two out of the three top fights were canceled, and a third fight on the main card was canceled. And the third fight on the card ended up being the main event. So, unfortunately, shit happens. Welcome to MMA during the pandemic. You have injuries already before the pandemic, and then you have the pandemic on top of it. So I never take a fight for granted until we actually see it in the cage. I'm still shocked that Aspen Ladd made it to the cage last weekend. So there's that. All right, that's this week in MMA. We're going to switch gears over into the rant. And I have been holding off, Brandon. Like, from afar, we have all seen what's going on between Ariel Helwani and Brendan Schaub. And last week, Ariel went on this huge rant, basically just laying hellfire and brimstone to Brendan Schaub and his whole team. And then everybody had an opinion on that afterwards. Everybody from Josh Thompson, the punk Josh Thompson, and his partner, John, referee John McCarthy. I don't know why I couldn't think of his name for a second. Fighters had their opinions. Journalists had their opinions. I wanted to lay back a week and kind of think about it. It's not a secret. People know what the real heat of the story kind of came from. Schaub's a fighter, thinks only fighters know what they're talking about. Journalists should stick in their lane. Ariel Helwani felt like Schaub lied about him, made up stories, didn't have a sincere apology, and then furthermore thought he was like basically crapping all over MMA journalists. Those are the cliff notes. Take your summary however you want. Everybody has a different opinion on it. Just a couple days ago, Brendan Schaub dropped his Below the Belt where he fully apologized to Ariel Helwani. He basically tried to end everything going on between the two of them, said they had a phone call where they just hashed it all out, had a man-to-man conversation. So this story is proverbially over. Brendan Schaub went on his show, basically apologized for everything. I kind of question the sincerity of some of the stuff he said just by watching his facial expressions and just the way he said it. But he said the words. And for Helwani and his purposes, as far as I know, the whole situation is now done. We'll see in the next MMA hour what he says. But as far as I know, the situation's over. But I kind of wanted to chime in on it. One, because we didn't have a rant scheduled this week, so I wanted to say something, if I'm being perfectly honest. And two, I had a pretty strong opinion on both sides. I think both are right and both are completely wrong all at the same time. Not to be political about it, but Brandon, if you think about it, I can't tell you what it's like to get punched in the face inside of a ring. You've lived that life that I have not lived, at least not in 20 plus years when I did a little bit of boxing. But you've done it more recently, and you've done it on a professional level for a long time. If I come to you, Brandon, and say, I know more about kickboxing than you do, you probably either curse me out or laugh me out of the building, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think you're as arrogant enough to come to me and say, Mike, you don't know how to produce an MMA show. Mike, you don't know what you're doing. And Mike, this isn't like, I can do this better than you. It's not about really staying in your lane. It's just showing respect to both sides. I think for Ariel Helwani to come at Brendan talking about how he was a failed football player and he was a failed fighter and he's a failed comedian, I think was asinine because Brendan Schaub has fought in the UFC. Whether he won or lost, he's fought in the UFC. One of the highest levels at the time, the highest level of heavyweight competition. He's put his face and his body on the line in the UFC. Ariel Helwani's never fought in the UFC. He's never played college football or the NFL. And as far as I know, the only comedy he does is on his show. On the other side, and Brendan Schaub admitted as much on his show this week, he doesn't know the exact details of a UFC event that happened 10 years ago. He's going to take the journalist credit for it. The journalists are paid to know certain things about certain things, and sometimes you have to take their word for it. Fighters aren't sitting there researching every news story from the last decade, whether it's MMA journalism or world news, or you're trying to find out what happened to Brian Laundrie or what happened to some senator in a back room somewhere. Journalism, whether it's MMA or the news or anywhere globally, sports journalism, anything, is a necessity. I don't consider myself a journalist. I consider myself more of an enthusiast. Like, I love talking about combat sports, whether it's MMA, wrestling, boxing, whatever. I'm an enthusiast. I don't consider myself a journalist. But people like Ariel Helwani, Luke Thomas, Damon Martin, some of these guys have been doing these for years. I consider them journalists. And I respect them for when they put out stories because they usually have fact-checked their stories. They know what they're talking about. I've heard fighters come out and blast Ariel Helwani for his rant last week. And I'm going to blast him only because I feel like ever since he's been let go he didn't get let go. Ever since he parted ways with ESPN and chose not to renew his contract with ESPN and go back on his own, he's kind of let hellfire go. Whether it was on Dan Le Batard's show, he's kind of going into his heel persona, and he's kind of just like let it all go. And some of it's been great. Brandon, you've heard me on this show, especially with the Dana White stuff, right? Like, I defended Ariel. I was like, all right, cool. I'm not going to say Ariel Helwani is the most sensitive person in the world because we all know people are more sensitive than him. It's just part of life. But the truth is, this situation, the apology wasn't good enough. He was joking. He was doing this. Get over yourself. If you want to defend MMA journalism, do it for yourself. Don't speak about everybody else. We can talk on our own. And as far as Brendan Schaub goes, Brendan's kind of already said it himself. He doesn't know the ins and outs of MMA journalism, and he doesn't want to. He's a comedian now. He likes to have fun on his shows, and sometimes the joking hits and sometimes it misses. But Brendan was wrong too. Both had good points and both had bad points, and I hate to play the middle, but at some point, both of them have to look in the mirror and be like, we just need to shut up. Any final thoughts on that one, Brandon?
Nah, man. Helwani all day, baby.
You're supposed to be on the fighter side, baby. I can't with you sometimes. All right, that's the rant this week. Leave a comment in the show notes. Let us know what you think. Tell us what side you're on. Tell us if you're not on either side. Just leave your thoughts. Let us know. We're going to go into some previews and picks. Somebody spoiled what I was going to say. But congratulations, Brandon Contino crossing the 100-win mark. The man is now 104-58. Take him to Atlantic City with you. Make some bets. I'm not too bad. I'm 96-64. I'm still 60% myself. I was 5-0 last week too. But Lead Dog has to steal the spotlight. I don't know how much humility he actually has sometimes. I talk about him not having an ego, but he does. All right, let's go ahead and make some picks. Up first, we're going to switch it up this week. Go back to putting Bellator first because I think the UFC kind of has slightly the bigger card. But it is the last return of the Emperor, Fedor Emelianenko, going against Tim Johnson. Main event, Bellator 269. Who you got, Brandon, and why?
I'm going with the last Emperor, man, Fedor. Reason why is because he picked this fight. He picked Tim Johnson. This is who Fedor said, yeah, I'll fight him. He could have fought any heavyweight that he wanted to. He picked Tim Johnson. To me, I think he says this is a fight he can win. He can get a W in front of his Russian fans, and I think the people will go home happy that night.
I'm not sure that I don't think he picked Tim Johnson for that reason. I think he picked Tim Johnson because he actually was the most competitive out of the names offered. Fedor himself this week said, why didn't you pick Junior Dos Santos? Why didn't you pick any of the other names offered to you, Overeem and so on and so forth? And he's like, all those guys are on losing streaks. All those guys got fired from the UFC. Those are his words. Why would I fight Junior Dos Santos when he's gotten knocked out like 3 times or 4 times in a row? He's like, Tim Johnson was on a pretty good winning streak. Out of the names offered to me, he was the best one. I wanted a competitive fight for my main fight. So I look at it from the other side. At least Fedor is saying the right words, whether he thought he could beat Johnson or not. I feel like Fedor thinks he can beat anybody. He's had some hiccups over his last few years. Tim Johnson's been relatively successful until he ran into Moldavsky in June. So I don't know about that, but the last person Fedor beat was Rampage Jackson, who was, he bulked up to play heavyweight. He's not a heavyweight. He is now because he just doesn't want to lose any weight. But Bader knocked him out. Mitrione knocked him out. He beat Frank Mir. He beat Chael Sonnen. What's that say? Chael Sonnen bulked up to fight him at heavyweight. He's had a hard time finding fights. Tim Johnson's always willing to fight anybody. So as far as my pick, if I had to, just because it's in Russia, I'll take Fedor in the home field. Nothing else. Maybe the Russians might poison Tim Johnson. I don't know. Put some substance on the gloves. I don't know. I feel like there's no way Tim Johnson's walking out of that arena with a victory unless he just comes out and knocks Fedor out in like the first couple seconds. So I'm going to pick Fedor on that one. Over in the co-main event, Vitaly Nemkov versus Saad Soma. Who you got now?
Nemkov, better fighter, has more tools. He's just the real deal. I could see this fight maybe being over in the first round as well. I could see him getting a finish.
Yeah, I'm kind of rolling with you on that one too. I think this is more of a showcase fight for Nemkov. It's not to say that Soma's not a competitive fighter. He's 7-2, but he's not really fought on this level. His last fight was against Ronnie Marks. He did get the first round knockout. And he did fight Terrell Fortune, so he's fought some competitive, but I think Nemkov's on his way up the rankings pretty fast. Other than the hiccup against Czech Congo, that's pretty much it. And then, of course, he knocked out Tim Johnson in his last fight. He's knocked out other fighters like Tony Johnson and Bigfoot Silva, so we'll see. I think it's going to be a competitive fight, but I don't think it'll be a first-round knockout, but I think Nemkov's going to get the win in that one. Also on the card, you got Usman Nurmagomedov fighting against Piatila, Tokov against Davia Tamurdov. You got Sidolinakov versus Truesdale. You got Tokov versus Guy. You got Mazik versus Sidora. You also got Alex Siva versus Page. Brian Moore's going against Mikhailov. You got Bazianian. God, some of these names I am horrible at. Versus Shurkovich. Aiden Lee is going to be taking on Ostrov, and then Rabadanov versus Belik. Of course, a lot of these fighters are local, more Russian-based fighters for the card that's going to be in Moscow. Any of these other fights you kind of looking forward to? I'm definitely looking forward to the Nurmagomedov fight.
I mean, of course, I'm looking forward to the Nurmagomedov fight, but you know me, man. I'm always down to watch the ladies get down in that flyweight division.
There's a couple of them, a couple good ladies fights. I mean, the Dorina fight should be pretty cool. Actually, maybe that's the only one I was looking at, but I think they're going to be an exciting fight. Oh yeah, the one right below it,
yep.
Alexieva versus Page should be a fun fight as well. Both those fighters have winning records and are going to bring it. And then another fight that people probably won't talk about too much, Vladimir Tokov. He looked great his last fight, so I'm interested to see what he does against Aymar Gia. So that should be a fun fight. That fight card will be starting at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. So wake up early if you want to catch some Bellator action on Saturday and see possibly the last fight for Fedor Emelianenko. So that is Bellator 269. We turn our attention over to UFC Vegas 41. We are starting a new decade of Vegas cards. No, I'm just kidding. Going on 41. Do you think they'll make it to UFC Vegas 50?
Honestly, I want to say no. I want to because I'm like I think
got 2 months to go. 3 months.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to say whatever they got this year, it'll be over, and then next they'll go back to the fight night, like calling them fight nights again.
I know at some point they talked about going back to Abu Dhabi for a couple Fight Island cards. So
yeah,
we'll see. UFC Fight Night 196, aka UFC Vegas 41. Paulo Costa finally getting back in the cage against Marvin Vettori. Who you got in this one and why?
Man,
I know I'm forcing you to pick a winner.
I'm gonna go with Vettori, man. I'm gonna go with Vettori.
Man, I can't catch up to you if you keep picking the same people I'm picking.
Hey, man, change your pick then, man. Yeah, I'm going with you.
Lead off for a reason.
I'm going with Vettori. Reason being is one, I'm still just a fan of his gym, King's MMA. I think that's a good gym out there in California. Also too, I kind of really like his play because usually Costa, he's just trying to just knock dudes out. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to knock dudes out. But Vettori usually uses his jab to kind of keep people at bay, or should I say, he uses his jab to close the distance. So this way he can try to get them up against the cage, wrestle them, work his ground and pound, maybe get a submission. And I just think Costa won't be able to get the distance that he wants to try to get the knockouts because I think Vettori is just going to be in his face and he's going to try to use his wrestling, to take him down and keep him there.
I think Vittori's going to win because I don't think Costa wants to be in that cage. I know that there's a million reasons why Costa hasn't fought since that Adesanya fight. There was the deal with COVID. There was the COVID after effects, which they blamed on the flu. There was like the medical procedure he had. I think he was having some kind of hair implants or something. There's a million reasons why Costa hasn't been in that cage, but at the bottom line is if you want to fight, you can fight. And I don't think Costa's wanted to fight. He saw Vettori get beat up by Adesanya. He thought this was easy pickings because Vettori called him out after that fight saying, I don't care who I fight next. Bring Costa in, bring whoever. And Costa felt like this guy just got clowned by Adesanya. And then on top of it, he called me out. So I think this is an easy fight. I don't think Costa wants to be in that fight. I don't think he wanted to be in that Adesanya fight. I don't think you can blame him getting, drunken up and on wine and everything the night before. From the moment that Adesanya-Costa fight started, it looked like Costa did not want to be in that cage. And if you don't want to be in that cage and you don't think you can win, you shouldn't be in that cage because you're going to get hurt. He could prove me wrong. He could come out and look like the Costa of old who ran through everybody before Adesanya. I don't think it's going to happen. And Vittori's tougher than people give him credit for. He doesn't get knocked out very easily. He goes the distance with people, even if he's not winning or losing. I think he's a tougher fighter, and the longer this fight goes, I think the more it favors Vettori. So I got Marvin Vettori in this fight. I think he's just more all around better than Costa. And if you're basing Costa on Yoel Romero, that's not a good comparison. So I'm gonna take Vettori in this fight as well. Over in the co-main, we got Grant Dawson versus Ricky Glenn. Who you got in that one?
I'm going with Grant Dawson, man. Dude has been a terror really ever since he came to the UFC. He even beat my teammate Mike Trezano. He's actually moved up to lightweight now instead of being a featherweight. And again, I mean, Ricky Glenn is good. He's a tough competitor. I think this is a good test.
That knockout against Silva.
I was gonna say I think this is a good test for Grant Dawson, but I think his pace, I think his wrestling is going to be too much for Glenn.
Yeah, I mean, Grant Dawson hasn't lost since 2016. He's been running through just about everybody, whether it's submissions or knockouts. He's dangerous everywhere. I'm still riding on the same train as Brandon, taking Grant Dawson as well. On the bright side, I can't fall further behind him. We got the same picks. Oh, man. The things I do to keep this show going. All right. Time to make your personal pick for the fight night. What is your fight to take a look at?
Is actually the fight that's right underneath the Grant Dawson fight. I'm going with I'm just gotta remember the names. The Jessica Rose Clark versus Jocelyn Edwards. I'm going with Jessie Rose Clark. Been a fan of hers, for a while. She's coming off of I want to say knee surgery, so this is her first fight back. Like I said, I just think again, I think she has the tools. I think 135 is her division. Like I think was kind of having trouble on where she wanted to be, if she wanted to be a flyweight or she wanted to be a bantamweight. But I think she got her weight situation down. I think 135 is her weight class, and I think she's gonna have a good performance.
She's slightly favored in this fight. I think she's like minus 145 or something like that. So she should probably come out and win. Jocelyn Edwards is always tough, but yeah, I'd probably see Clark getting the win in this one. Jess. On the rest of the card, as far as my fight pick of the night, I'm actually going with a newcomer. Jeff Molina's fighting against Daniel Lasarda. Lasarda's making his debut. Lasarda, of course, fights with Cowboy Alex Oliveira in Brazil. So Oliveira, I'm sorry. I think Daniel Lasarda is the truth. He's 11-1. I think Jeff Molina is no pushover. El Jefe's definitely a competitive fighter, 9-2. And he might even be favored in this fight if I'm looking at the odds. But I think Daniel Lasarda is going to be around for quite a while. He has literally run through everybody in Shudo boxing in Brazil, Shudo Brazil. The only time he had a hiccup was 2019, and that's because he blew out his shoulder or something like that in the middle of the fight. So he really doesn't have a true loss. It just happens to be a TKO because of the injury. And nobody's come close. So he's making his UFC debut, and that 125-pound division is pretty much wide open. So he can make a run pretty quickly and get to a title fight sooner than later if he gets a few wins under his belt. So that's, in my opinion, I think it's going to be fight of the night. You got any thoughts on that fight?
No, sorry, man. I don't have any thoughts on that fight.
That's why I'm the MMA enthusiast and he's the fighter.
Yeah, but there's one fight that I kind of do have my eye on, and that's the Alex.
Whoa. Let me run down the card real quick, and then you can tell us.
All right.
He's about to say the Alex Caceres versus Sang-Woo Choi. That's also on the card. Francisco Trinaldo's on the card against Dwight Grant, which is going to be a fantastic fight. Nicolay versus Isaac Villanueva versus then we also have Park versus Rodriguez, Mason Jones versus Anama. That's going to be a great fight. 10-1 versus 8-0. Something's got to give. Tabitha Ritchie versus Nada. That's another great fight. 5-1, 12-4. Those girls are going to bring it. Jamie Pickett. I'm looking forward to that fight against Staropoli. Kama Worthy versus Jai Herbert. I think Jai Herbert's going to get the upset here. I talked about Jeff Molina versus Lasarda. We got Souza versus Ronda Marcos. Marcos is always a tough veteran. And then Jonathan Martinez versus Lavashili. You were going to say you were looking forward to that Alex Caceres fight?
Yeah, man. I'm always down to see how Bruce Leroy is doing. You know, I feel like he's changed so many times, but I feel like he's always getting better.
I'll tell you what, Brandon, from this card from start to finish is one of probably going to be a very slept-on card. And it's taking place at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so a lot of people will miss it and have to watch it later. Luckily, it's on ESPN Plus, so people can watch it whenever on demand. But I look at this card, and I don't see a boring fight on here. Like, honestly, like top to bottom, I don't see a boring fight. Like, even Souza versus Marcos could be like a boring fight because Marcos sometimes just tries to grapple with you for 3 rounds. But Souza's been going out and knocking other girls out, so she might not get the opportunity. Kama Worthy and Jai Herbert are both going to try and knock each other out. I don't know much about the Nicolay versus Isaac Villanueva fight, but both are like Nicolay is 10-1. So some of these guys, if you're just learning about them, these fight cards are amazing because you get to find out people you didn't know existed before. So that's going to be fun. Anything else you're looking forward to on this card?
Nah, man, just looking for a great night of fights.
As always, or a great afternoon, because I know you love those Saturday afternoon cards.
Yep.
So all the action will be taking place pretty early on. That is that for all of our picks. Let's see if I can go 5-0 again. I'm not making up any ground because we picked 4 of the same picks all over again and 1 fight pick each of us. So we'll see if our fight picks are right and who has bragging rights for next week, though it's kind of hard for me to even make up ground at 1 fight pick a week. So, but if he's right, he's right. I got to agree with him. I mean, he was right. So I'm not going to pick against him just to try to make up ground. I've done that before. It didn't work out well for me. Ladies and gentlemen, real quick, make sure you tune in this weekend. We got the interview with Eugene Aubrey. Check out his story. If you haven't heard, it's a really crazy story. His story would be crazy if he didn't get shot. Like, he has just one hell of a life he's lived. So check out that one. Check out the shirt we're going to be putting in the shop to help support his cause. I'm also going to be dropping some new merch probably some point in the next few days. I got a couple T-shirts in mind I've been thinking of in back of my mind. So check out FightersFirst.shop. Get the Art of MMA merch. He's got the old Bruce Lee shirt on. By the way, drop a comment. I've been thinking about bringing those back just because they did pretty well. And my other shirts got shut down by the man. So I'm thinking about bringing back those. So we'll see. We'll see how that all plays out. But leave me a comment. Let me know. What do you think, Brandon? You think I should bring back the Bruce Lee shirt?
Yeah, man. Bruce Lee's the GOAT.
I can't argue with that. See, when he's right, he's right. Anything else you want to add on this week before we get out of here?
Hey, just everybody, remember, if you're a kickboxing fan, be on the lookout for the new show that we have, Kicking It with Tim and the Mechanic. We're going should be a new episode coming out next Thursday because we're gonna recap Glory and we're gonna recap One Championship, their first strike show that they just had.
And of course, Glory Collision this weekend.
Yep.
So check that out. You know, Brandon's going to be hyped up on social media. He's going to be like, forget MMA. I'm a kickboxer.
Yep.
I mean, it's at nighttime, so he'll get the MMA out of his system if he's not drunk in Atlantic City. I don't know. It is the weekend. I mean, yeah.
Hey, baby. AC the whole weekend.
I wouldn't be surprised if you do, especially with Glory on. But anyway, check out Glory Collision this weekend. Of course, Brandon and them Kicking It with Tim and the Mechanic is on the network, Fighters First Network. They did have an episode last week. It's doing pretty well, actually. So congrats on your debut episode. They'll be back next week in action for another episode, recapping both last week and this week's cards. So check that out. Check out Slamtown. For those that get sick of us talking about wrestling on this show, we have our own show. Hopefully we'll get Brandon on it sometime soon. This week we called a show The Dynamite Kid Effect, talking about small guys kind of taking extra risks, putting their lives on the line, shortening the careers, and maybe even shortening their lives by doing some of these injuries. If you know the Dynamite Kid story, you kind of understand where we're coming from. So check that out, Slamtown on the network. A lot of great stuff. Of course, the A Show, Art of MMA. Check it out every single Wednesday. We're back in action every week. We'll come back next week, break down these fight cards, and break down all the action coming as well. For the Mechanic, Brandon Catino, I'm Mike Ginn. This is Art of MMA, and we're out.
Oh my God.